The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle is a transformative guide to understanding the importance of living in the present moment. In this book, Tolle explores how our minds often lead us to dwell on the past or worry about the future, creating unnecessary stress and suffering. He teaches that true peace and happiness are found when we embrace the present moment, free from the distractions of our thoughts. Tolle's approach is simple yet profound. By shifting our awareness to the now, we can experience a deep sense of inner calm and spiritual awakening. Through practical insights and teachings, The Power of Now invites readers to release their attachment to the past and future, unlocking the power that lies within the present moment. This book is a path to greater clarity, freedom, and a deeper connection to ourselves and the world around us. In the introduction of The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle shares his personal story of struggle and transformation. He talks about how, for much of his life, he felt overwhelmed by depression and confusion. He didn't understand the meaning of life and thought it was filled with pain. But everything changed one day when he had a deep, life-changing realization. In that moment, he understood that true peace doesn't come from the past or the future, but from being fully present in the now. Tolle explains that our minds often distract us from the present moment, which causes stress and unhappiness. When we focus on the now and stop worrying about what happened or what might happen, we can find inner peace. He encourages readers to let go of their constant thoughts and embrace the present as the key to true happiness and spiritual awakening. Chapter 1: You Are Not Your Mind. In the opening chapter of The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle explores a central idea that many people find difficult to grasp. We are not our minds. The mind, Tolle explains, is an instrument that helps us navigate the world, but it is not who we truly are. Most people, however, identify with their thoughts, believing that they are their emotions, memories, and beliefs. This identification with the mind causes a great deal of suffering, as the mind is often consumed by worries, fears, and regrets about the past and future. Tolle elaborates on how the mind perpetuates this sense of self through mental patterns and stories we tell ourselves. These mental patterns often revolve around negative emotions, such as anxiety, guilt, and frustration, which arise from the mind's tendency to dwell on past experiences or anxieties about what might happen in the future. By attaching to these thoughts, we become trapped in a cycle of pain and unconsciousness. One of the most important teachings of this chapter is the realization that we are the awareness behind our thoughts. The true essence of who we are is not the thoughts themselves, but the observer of those thoughts. When we recognize that we are the awareness that watches the thoughts, we can create distance from them and stop identifying with the constant mental chatter. This realization offers freedom from the ego, the sense of self that is tied to the mind, and opens the door to a life of inner peace and clarity. Tolle encourages readers to practice detaching from the mind by observing their thoughts without judgment. This practice, called witnessing, helps us shift from being absorbed by our thoughts to simply noticing them as they arise. Through this awareness, we can begin to experience the present moment as it truly is, without the interference of the mind's endless stream of thoughts. By learning to separate ourselves from the mind, we free ourselves from the cycle of suffering and experience a deeper, more peaceful connection with life. Chapter 2: Consciousness, the Way Out of Pain. In the second chapter, Tolle delves into the concept of consciousness as the path to overcoming psychological pain. He defines consciousness as the state of being aware and fully present in the current moment, without judgment or attachment to the past or future. This awareness, Tolle suggests, is the way out of the pain that so many people experience in their daily lives. Tolle begins by explaining the nature of psychological pain. This pain is not just a result of external circumstances, but is often created by the mind's attachment to past memories, unresolved emotions, and future anxieties. We carry psychological pain from our past experiences, often without even realizing it. The mind clings to these experiences, and in doing so, it perpetuates suffering. For instance, feelings of guilt, regret, and shame are rooted in the past, while worry, fear, and anxiety are projections about the future. The way to break free from this pain is to become more conscious of our present experience. Tolle emphasizes that when we become aware of our thoughts and emotions without identifying with them, we create space between ourselves and the pain. We no longer have to be ruled by our thoughts or emotional reactions. Instead of getting lost in the story of our pain, we can observe it as an outsider, recognizing that we are not the pain itself, but the awareness that notices it. By shifting our consciousness to the present moment, we can stop the mind's endless cycle of thinking and free ourselves from the emotional charge that sustains pain. Tolle argues that the present moment is the only place where true peace can be found, because it is the only time that truly exists. The past is gone, and the future is not yet here. They are mental constructs that the mind clings to in order to avoid experiencing the present. The pain we experience is often a result of the mind's inability to accept the present moment as it is. Tolle teaches that by becoming more conscious, we can detach from the past and future and enter a state of presence. This presence, or heightened consciousness, allows us to see life clearly and without the distortion of our thoughts and emotions. It is in this state of presence that we find true peace, because we are no longer overwhelmed by the mind's endless chatter. Ultimately, Tolle explains that consciousness is the gateway to spiritual awakening and healing. By cultivating awareness of the present moment, we create a shift in consciousness that allows us to experience life more fully and without the burden of mental suffering. This awareness not only brings peace, but also helps us understand the deeper truths of existence. Through the practice of conscious living, we can experience a profound transformation, moving from pain and unconsciousness to freedom, peace, and spiritual enlightenment. Chapter 3: Moving Deeply into the Now. In this chapter, Eckhart Tolle explores how to move beyond superficial awareness and deeply immerse ourselves in the present moment. He explains that many people live their lives on the surface, going through daily routines, distracted by their thoughts and concerns without truly experiencing the present. Although they may be physically present in their surroundings, they are mentally elsewhere, lost in the past or future. Tolle emphasizes that to experience true peace, we must go beyond the surface and consciously enter the depth of the now. Tolle introduces the concept of deep presence, which involves being fully engaged with the present moment without mental interference. This means letting go of the constant thinking that distracts us from the richness of life unfolding around us. To achieve this, Tolle advises that we bring our full attention to whatever we are doing, whether it's washing dishes, walking, or simply breathing. By paying close attention to these simple activities and sensing the aliveness in them, we begin to connect with the deeper dimension of the present moment. A key practice Tolle suggests is to focus on the body as a way to anchor ourselves in the now. He explains that the body is an immediate way to access the present moment. By tuning into the body, noticing its sensations, and becoming aware of its aliveness, we create a bridge to the now. This practice of body awareness helps dissolve the mental noise that keeps us stuck in the past or future, bringing us back to the immediate experience of being. Tolle also talks about the importance of accepting the present moment as it is. Often, people resist the now because it doesn't match their expectations or desires. However, resistance to the present moment only creates more suffering. Acceptance of what is, without judgment or complaint, allows us to move into the depth of the now and experience its transformative power. Tolle stresses that the present moment is not something to be escaped from, but something to be embraced fully. When we accept the now, we allow life to flow through us without interference, opening the door to inner peace. The chapter concludes by reminding readers that the power of the now is always available. We do not need to go anywhere or do anything special to experience it. It is always here, in every moment, waiting for us to consciously step into it. By consistently practicing presence and awareness, we can gradually shift our experience of life from a state of unconsciousness to one of deep connection with the now, where peace and joy naturally arise. Chapter 4: Mind Strategies for Avoiding the Now. In this chapter, Eckhart Tolle delves into the various ways the mind resists being fully present in the now. He explains that the mind, by its very nature, is constantly looking for distractions, justifications, and reasons to avoid the present moment. This resistance comes from the ego, the false sense of self that is built upon thoughts, memories, and identification with external things. The ego doesn't want to be in the now because it fears the loss of its identity, which is constantly tied to the past or future. Tolle identifies several common mental strategies that the mind uses to keep us away from the present. One of these strategies is time binding. The mind is always focused on time, whether through regrets about the past or worries about the future. We find ourselves dwelling on memories of past experiences, which shape our identity, or we fixate on what we need to do or fear about what might happen in the future. This constant focus on time prevents us from experiencing life as it is right now. Another strategy the mind uses is thinking about problems. People often have a habit of thinking about their problems repeatedly, even when they aren't actively trying to solve them. This thinking keeps them mentally occupied and distracts them from the present moment. By focusing on problems, the mind creates a sense of urgency or anxiety, which prevents the person from experiencing the now. Tolle suggests that problems are often not as real or as urgent as the mind makes them seem. When we stop identifying with these problems and allow ourselves to step out of the mind's endless chatter, we can see that in the now, there is peace and freedom. Tolle also points out that the mind often uses identification with roles and labels to avoid the now. People often define themselves by their job, social status, or relationships, and these roles become part of their identity. The mind clings to these labels, creating a sense of self that is tied to external circumstances. When we identify with these roles, we lose touch with our true essence and the present moment. Tolle emphasizes that when we let go of these labels and the mental images we have of ourselves, we can experience the freedom of being independent of external circumstances. Additionally, the mind uses mental patterns and habits to avoid the now. These patterns include habitual thinking, emotions, and behaviors that are driven by past conditioning. The mind likes to keep repeating these patterns because they provide a sense of familiarity and comfort. However, these patterns are often limiting and prevent us from being fully present. Tolle encourages readers to become aware of these mental patterns and break free from them by focusing on the present moment and observing the thoughts without judgment. One of the most important points Tolle makes in this chapter is that the mind is not the enemy. It is simply a tool that can be used in a healthy, conscious way. The problem arises when we identify too strongly with the mind and let it control our lives. Tolle encourages us to recognize when the mind is using these strategies to avoid the now and to shift our awareness back to the present moment. By doing this, we can free ourselves from the mind's distractions and experience a deeper, more authentic connection with life. Tolle's message is clear. We have the power to choose whether we let our minds control us or whether we choose to step into the now. The key to overcoming the mind's strategies is to bring awareness to the present moment and allow it to unfold without interference from past thoughts or future worries. In this space of presence, we can experience the true peace that comes from being fully engaged with life as it is, free from the distractions of the mind. Chapter 5, The State of Presence. In this chapter, Eckhart Tolle explains the concept of the state of presence, which refers to a state of full awareness and mindfulness in the present moment. He describes presence as a state of being where one is deeply attuned to the now, without the interference of the mind's constant thinking and distractions. Presence is a state of pure awareness where the individual is fully engaged with the present without judgment, resistance, or attachment to thoughts or emotions. Tolle emphasizes that presence is not something we need to achieve or attain through effort. It is always available to us in every moment, but it requires conscious attention and a shift in perception. The mind tends to draw us away from the present moment, either by focusing on past memories or future concerns. However, when we bring our full attention to the now, we begin to experience life as it truly is, free from the distortions created by the mind. One key aspect of the state of presence is the ability to observe thoughts and emotions without identifying with them. This practice of watching the thinker, allows us to see that we are not our thoughts. Rather, we are the awareness behind them. By becoming more aware of our inner experience and detaching from the constant mental noise, we can enter a state of peace and stillness. Tolle also highlights that the state of presence is characterized by a sense of inner calm and connectedness to life. It is not an escape from the world, but rather a deeper way of engaging with it. In this state, we become more aware of the beauty and aliveness of everything around us, whether it's the sounds of nature, the feeling of the body, or the people we interact with. The state of presence is where true peace, joy, and spiritual awakening arise. Chapter 6, The Inner Body. In the 6th chapter, Tolle introduces the concept of the inner body, which he describes as a powerful tool for connecting with the present moment and accessing the state of presence. The inner body is the subtle energy field that exists within us, beyond the physical body. It can be felt as a sense of aliveness or energy, and it is always present, even though we may not always be aware of it. Tolle explains that the inner body serves as an anchor to the present moment. By focusing on the sensations within the body, we can break free from the constant stream of thoughts that often dominate our awareness. The inner body is a direct path to the now because it exists outside of mental concepts, in a state of pure sensation. When we bring our attention to the inner body, we shift our awareness away from the thinking mind and into a deeper, more immediate experience of life. To experience the inner body, Tolle suggests we begin by directing our attention to specific parts of the body, such as the hands, feet, or chest. By focusing on the subtle sensations in these areas, we can gradually expand our awareness to the entire body. This practice helps us become more grounded in the present moment and more connected to our physical form. The inner body also helps to dissolve the ego, which is often tied to external identities and mental constructs. When we focus on the inner body, we move away from the identification with the mind and begin to experience life as a whole, integrated being. Tolle further explains that by becoming aware of the inner body, we can experience a sense of peace, stillness, and vitality. This awareness allows us to move through life more consciously, rather than being lost in thought or distraction. The inner body is not only a tool for spiritual awakening, but it also offers a way to enhance our overall well-being. By regularly connecting with the inner body, we can reduce stress, increase our sense of aliveness, and experience a deeper connection with ourselves and the world around us. Ultimately, the practice of focusing on the inner body helps us cultivate a more embodied sense of presence where we are fully grounded in the now. Tolle encourages readers to practice this awareness regularly, as it is a simple yet powerful way to experience the peace and freedom that come from living in the present moment. Through the inner body, we can access a deeper dimension of consciousness and awaken to the truth of who we really are. Chapter 7, Portals into the Unmanifested. In this chapter, Eckhart Tolle explores the concept of the unmanifested, a term he uses to describe the deeper, formless essence of life that transcends the physical world and the mental constructs of the mind. The unmanifested is not something that can be perceived by the senses, nor is it something that can be understood by the thinking mind. It is the source of all creation, the stillness and presence that exist beneath the surface of the material world. Tolle refers to it as the underlying consciousness or the being that is at the core of all things. Tolle explains that while the unmanifested cannot be directly experienced through ordinary perception, there are portals or pathways that allow us to connect with it. These portals are entry points into a deeper state of awareness and presence where we can touch the essence of life beyond the limitations of the mind and ego. The portals are not external places or objects, but rather inner experiences that bring us into alignment with the present moment and the stillness that lies beyond it. One of the primary portals into the unmanifested, Tolle suggests, is the practice of inner stillness. When we quiet the mind and detach from the constant stream of thoughts, we begin to access a state of pure being. This stillness allows us to experience the presence of life in its most basic form, without the distortion of mental concepts or emotional attachments. It is in this stillness that we encounter the unmanifested, as it is the place where all thoughts, emotions, and external distractions fade away, leaving only pure awareness. Tolle also discusses how certain experiences in life can serve as portals into the unmanifested, such as moments of profound beauty, deep peace, or intense joy. These experiences temporarily take us beyond the ego and mental conditioning, providing a glimpse into a more expansive consciousness. For instance, encountering the beauty of nature, the simplicity of a child's laughter, or the awe of a profound spiritual experience can momentarily open a doorway to the deeper, formless reality of the unmanifested. Another powerful portal, according to Tolle, is the practice of surrender. Surrendering to the present moment, accepting life as it is, without resistance or judgment, allows us to transcend the ego and the mental structures that keep us trapped in the illusion of separateness. By surrendering, we open ourselves to the flow of life as it is, without trying to control or manipulate it. This act of surrender aligns us with the unmanifested because it requires letting go of the ego's need for control and opening to the present moment in its fullness. Tolle also highlights the importance of the inner body as a portal to the unmanifested. The inner body, as discussed in the previous chapter, is a source of subtle energy and aliveness that can help us connect with the present moment and the deeper dimension of consciousness. By focusing on the sensations in the body, we move away from the thinking mind and enter a space of direct experience, where we are no longer trapped by thoughts or concepts. The inner body brings us closer to the unmanifested, as it is a reflection of the formless energy that underlies all existence. Ultimately, Tolle's message in this chapter is that the unmanifested is always present, waiting to be experienced. It is not something far away or unattainable. It is within us and around us, hidden beneath the surface of our ordinary awareness. Through practices such as stillness, surrender, and body awareness, we can begin to access the deeper dimension of reality, where we experience a sense of oneness with life itself. These portals into the unmanifested are invitations to step beyond the limitations of the ego and mental conditioning and enter into a state of pure consciousness, where peace, love, and timeless presence prevail. Chapter 8. Enlightened Relationships. In this chapter, Eckhart Tolle explores how relationships can serve as a powerful path to spiritual awakening. He begins by explaining that most relationships are governed by the ego, which leads people to seek fulfillment from others based on unconscious needs, desires, and projections. This creates a dynamic of dependency and conflict where individuals are looking for something from each other that they themselves have not yet found within. Tolle argues that true, enlightened relationships are not based on ego-driven needs, but on the deeper connection to presence and awareness. When both individuals in a relationship are grounded in the present moment and free from the control of their minds and egos, they can experience a more authentic, loving connection. In this state, each person is not seeking to fulfill their own needs or expectations, but instead embracing the other person as they are, without judgment or attachment. He explains that when two people are truly present with each other, without mental interference or emotional projection, their relationship becomes a space where both individuals can experience a deep sense of peace and joy. This type of relationship is not about getting something from the other person, but about sharing love and presence in the moment. Tolle suggests that when we are present with others, we create a space for them to be fully themselves, free from the mental conditioning and roles that typically define relationships. Tolle also addresses the concept of love in relationships. He clarifies that true love is not the emotional attachment or romantic love often depicted in society, but a deeper state of connection that arises from being present and aware. In this enlightened state, love is not something that is given or taken from another person. It is a shared experience of being, a union of consciousness. This love does not depend on external circumstances or conditions, but flows freely from the connection to the present moment. One of the key elements of enlightened relationships, according to Tolle, is the ability to observe and transcend the patterns of the ego. The ego often manifests in relationships through judgments, criticisms, and emotional reactions. These mental patterns create tension and conflict, making it difficult for the relationship to grow and evolve. However, When individuals become aware of these patterns and are able to disidentify from them, they can respond to each other from a place of presence rather than ego. This allows for deeper understanding, compassion, and harmony. Tolle also explains that relationships can act as mirrors, reflecting our own unresolved issues and unconscious patterns. When we are triggered by another person's behavior, it is often because something within us is unresolved or unhealed. Instead of reacting to the other person, Tolle encourages readers to turn inward and explore what the trigger is revealing about their own inner state. In this way, relationships become an opportunity for self-awareness and healing, as they reveal aspects of ourselves that we may have been avoiding or suppressing. Enlightened relationships are not about perfection or the absence of conflict, but rather about the ability to stay present, observe, and respond consciously. When both people in the relationship are committed to spiritual awakening and living in the now, the relationship becomes a space where both individuals can grow, heal, and deepen their connection with each other and with themselves. Ultimately, Tolle's vision for enlightened relationships is one where love, acceptance, and presence are the foundation. When two people are able to look beyond the ego and connect with each other on a deeper level, the relationship becomes a reflection of the peace and joy that come from being fully present in the moment. Through this kind of conscious relationship, we can experience the profound unity of life and move closer to the realization of our true nature. Chapter 9. Beyond happiness and unhappiness, there is peace. In this chapter, Eckhart Tolle explores the concept of peace, which transcends the fleeting states of happiness and unhappiness. He explains that happiness and unhappiness are conditional states based on external circumstances, personal desires, or attachment to outcomes. When we are attached to things going a certain way or achieving specific goals, our sense of happiness becomes dependent on them. Similarly, when things do not go as expected, unhappiness arises from the mind's judgments and projections. Tolle suggests that true peace is not dependent on any external conditions or emotional states. It is a deeper, more stable state of being that exists beyond the dualities of happiness and unhappiness. This peace arises when we stop identifying with the fluctuating mental and emotional states and instead connect with the present moment as it is. When we no longer define our well-being by how things appear in the external world, we can experience peace that is independent of circumstances. The peace that Tolle speaks of is a state of acceptance and inner stillness. It comes from being fully present in the now, without resistance to what is. He emphasizes that this peace is not something to be sought or gained. It is already within us, waiting to be realized. The key to accessing this peace is to shift our focus from the mind's incessant chatter and judgment to the stillness and presence of the now. When we let go of the constant need for things to be different, we discover the peace that lies beyond all emotional fluctuations. Tolle also explains that this state of peace is not passive or detached from life. It is a profound acceptance of life as it is, without trying to control or change it. Peace does not mean ignoring or suppressing emotions or challenges, but rather embracing them with full awareness, without becoming entangled in them. In this way, peace becomes a source of strength, enabling us to navigate life with greater clarity and presence. Chapter 10. The Meaning of Surrender. In this chapter, Tolle discusses the concept of surrender, which he describes as the key to experiencing true inner peace and spiritual awakening. Surrender, in Tolle's view, does not mean giving up or resigning ourselves to life's difficulties passively. Instead, it is an active acceptance of the present moment as it is, without resistance, judgment, or attachment. Surrender is the letting go of the ego's desire to control, manipulate, or force life to conform to its expectations. Tolle explains that the mind, driven by the ego, constantly resists life and strives to impose its will on circumstances. This resistance creates conflict and suffering, as the ego is never fully satisfied and is always seeking more. Surrender, however, is about stepping out of this cycle of resistance. It involves accepting life in its current form, without trying to change or fight against it. When we surrender, we align ourselves with the flow of life in the present moment, trusting that what is unfolding is exactly what is needed for our growth and spiritual awakening. Surrender does not mean passivity or resignation to unfavorable situations. It is a conscious choice to accept whatever arises, whether it is perceived as good or bad, without resistance. Tolle clarifies that surrender is not about giving up our power or agency, but about realizing that true power lies in accepting and embracing the present moment, rather than struggling against it. Tolle also discusses how surrender opens the door to spiritual awakening. By surrendering to the now, we move beyond the limitations of the ego and the mind. The mind cannot grasp the present moment because it is always focused on past and future. Surrender allows us to step out of the mind's constant need for control and enter into the state of pure presence, where we can experience life in its fullness and beauty. The act of surrender can also lead to profound inner peace. When we stop resisting life, we release the tension and anxiety that come from constantly fighting against what is. Surrender creates space for us to experience the peace that is inherent in the present moment. Tolle emphasizes that this peace is not something to attain, but something to recognize within ourselves as we surrender to the now. Ultimately, Tolle teaches that surrender is not a one-time act, but a continual practice. Every time we resist or judge the present moment, we have the opportunity to practice surrender by returning to acceptance and presence. Through this process, we can break free from the ego's control and move into a state of deeper peace, joy, and spiritual awakening. Both chapters highlight the importance of letting go of attachment to external outcomes, emotional states, and the need for control. True peace, happiness, and spiritual awakening arise when we surrender to the present moment and stop resisting life as it unfolds. Surrender is a powerful path to freedom, as it allows us to align with the flow of life and experience a deeper connection with our true essence. Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now concludes by emphasizing the transformative power of living in the present moment. He stresses that true peace and spiritual awakening arise when we let go of the past and future and embrace the now. By shifting our awareness away from the mind's distractions and ego-driven desires, we can access deeper states of consciousness and experience life more fully. Through practices of surrender, stillness, and presence, we break free from mental suffering and realize that inner peace and joy are always available to us. Tolle encourages readers to consistently return to the present moment, recognizing the profound freedom that comes from embracing life as it is.
Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you taking the time to join me. If you found the video helpful, please like, subscribe, and share it with others. I'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to leave a comment.